Georgia Tech is undefeated, and yet they're on upset alert? Let's break it down.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On ACC. I'm Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Of course, we are always free and available wherever you get your podcast. And on this Friday solo edition of Locked On ACC, we are breaking down all 9 matchups in the ACC for Week 10 of college football. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are entering the final month of regular season college football action. And later on in the episode, we will crown this week's matchup the winner of the Somebody Has to Win Bowl. So stick around later in the episode to find out which matchup in the ACC took home that prestigious honor. Plus, Virginia. They've had a great year so far. And as of right now, they could definitely be in Charlotte by the end of the season as one of the 2 teams in the ACC title game, but I don't think that's going to happen, and they're going to lose this weekend at Cal. Oh boy, that's right. I'm picking the upset right there. Stick around for my thoughts later on in the episode, but first, Georgia Tech, undefeated, having a fantastic season, and yet they're somehow on upset alert. We will begin with that in just a moment, but first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We got 9 matchups in the ACC this week. We actually got 5 matchups that feature a ranked opponent. And we got a game tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Halloween, by the way, and I think tonight is going to be a pretty spooky game between Syracuse at home. I love Syracuse, but they're not very good right now, and they're taking on North Carolina, another not very good team, certainly a worthy candidate for the Somebody Has to Win Bowl recipient of this week. But let's break down all 9 matchups in the conference, shall we? Let's start off with North Carolina State. That's right, I spelled out their entire name. Versus number 8, Georgia Tech, this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Georgia Tech's had a great year. They're 8-0, 5-0 in the conference. They have the inside track to be one of the 2 representatives in Charlotte by the end of the season. In fact, right now, they should be favored to win the ACC. And I've been someone over the past few weeks, really, that has not been the biggest believer in Georgia Tech, but they have been the most consistent team in the ACC to date. So can someone please explain to me why the last time I checked the FanDuel odds, which was on Thursday afternoon, that Georgia Tech is only a 5.5 point favorite? I get it's on the road, but they're only a 5.5 point favorite at NC State. Can someone explain that to me? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Georgia Tech should destroy NC State. First and foremost, both teams have a ton to play for. This is not one of those matchups where NC State's got nothing to lose or Georgia Tech has nothing to lose. These teams both have a lot to lose and everything to gain, I guess, as well. Georgia Tech, obviously, they're in the driver's seat right now, but the key phrase right there is right now. We don't know where they're going to be in a couple of weeks. They got to keep winning. If they keep winning, they're fine. They'll win the ACC potentially. They'll go to the college football playoff. Who knows after that? For NC State, what do they have to play for? Well, they need to get to 6 wins in order to qualify for a bowl. And I believe right now they're at 4-4. Dave Doeren, their head coach, he's been there for a long time. He's coaching for his job, ladies and gentlemen. If they don't have a really strong second half of the year, or really just not second half, a really strong closeout to the year, he's likely gone. So you got a coach at NC State who's coaching for his job. You got a team that's trying to qualify for a bowl, and you got a team in Georgia Tech that is trying to make the college football playoff this season. So I really don't understand in that regard why Georgia Tech would only be a 5.5-point favorite. NC State's defense, let's just call it what it is. It's bad. They don't stop the run particularly well either, and that's Georgia Tech's biggest strength is running the football. So I'm picking Georgia Tech to win this game, and I think they're going to cover relatively easily. I'm going Georgia Tech 34-23. By the way, with NC State, they now nearly 30 points per game. That's bottom 5 in the conference. They might be able to score a little bit. I'm not sure they're really going to be able to stop Georgia Tech all that much. Georgia Tech hold serve on the road. Not only do they win, but they cover. 34-23 final score prediction right there. Let's move on to another matchup here. SMU hosting Miami Saturday at noon Eastern. And SMU, what was that last week? That stunk. That wasn't very fun. And then I got to go to Miami and say, what was that first half from the Miami Hurricanes? Not very good either way. When I analyze this matchup and I crunch all the numbers here, there's only one outcome that would actually surprise me, and that is SMU destroys Miami. There's really only 4 possibilities every single time you enter a matchup. Either team blows each other out, either team wins a close game. I could see Miami winning a close game. I could see Miami blowing out SMU, and I can see SMU at home winning a tight game. And you ready for this, folks? This is the first time all season that the Miami Hurricanes will play a football game this season outside the state of Florida. I know. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's the reality. So I had to check the weather naturally, because when you're leaving the state of Florida, and Florida generally has really good weather for football, weather could absolutely become a factor in a game. But I checked the weather down in Dallas, Texas. High 50s, mid 60s throughout the game. Could be overcast, but there's not supposed to be a lot of wind. Not supposed to be any rain. That's right. Now I'm a meteorologist for you all. Miami's favored by 12.5. I don't think that's the greatest line. I think that's too generous in favor of Miami. I could see them covering, but I'm probably not going to pick them to cover. But Miami is a more well-balanced team. And as we saw last Saturday, they can turn it on at any moment. All it takes is one spark play potentially from Malachi Toney, and the opponent is done. The opponent is toast. That being said, SMU is a much better team than Stanford. So Miami can't be sleepwalking in the first half like they did against Stanford and expect that they can walk out of Dallas with a victory. But I'm still picking Miami. I think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to cover. I got the Miami Hurricanes on the road beating SMU 27-20. Comment your thoughts in the comments section below for both those matchups that we just talked about. You think Georgia Tech is going to stay undefeated, beat NC State, avoid the upset? Do you think that there's an upset potentially there? What's the path for NC State to potentially win that game? And plus for Miami, are they going to win against SMU, first game out of the state of Florida, or are they going to do the typical Miami, which is get your hopes up, get everyone to believe in you, and then crash back down to earth? We'll find out this Saturday. That's the beauty of playing the games. Coming up, Virginia. They've had a great year, but the winning is about to end. Stick with me here on Locked On ACC. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward, I think, is pretty obvious. We got to go to that Wake Forest SMU game from last weekend, and Connor Calvert kicking a game-winning 50-yard field goal as time expired. Wake Forest upsets SMU at home. What a tremendous kick. Barely got in. It just cleared the crossbar. But Wake Forest prevails 13-12 on a walk-off field goal. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Locked On ACC, I'm Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse. Let's continue previewing Week 10 of ACC football. And before we get to the Virginia matchup against Cal, we're going in order in terms of how these teams are ranked. So we got to talk about number 12 Notre Dame against Boston College this Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Boston College is the home team. The only question I have for you all, ladies and gentlemen, is how many points do you think Notre Dame beats Boston College by? How many? My score prediction is 45-10. So I'm going to say 35, but feel free to comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Notre Dame should mop the floor of Boston College. That should not be a fair fight. Now, Cal hosting number 15 Virginia this Saturday, 3:45 p.m. Eastern. You may have heard my thoughts on ACC Squad, which premiered Thursday afternoon, I believe. Virginia's had a great year. Great story. I take nothing away from them. I apologize to Virginia fans. You should be so proud of your team and the fact that they are here and the fact that they have a legitimate chance to be in Charlotte. And if you're in Charlotte, all you got to do is win that game and you're in the college football playoff. It would be an unbelievable story if Virginia Tech, or not Virginia Tech, that would certainly be a story, but if Virginia actually won the conference this year. But unfortunately for Virginia, the clock is going to strike midnight on this team. And it's going to happen this weekend at Cal. That's right, folks. Virginia, they have a loss to NC State this season. Is NC State any good? No, right? They're not very good. Virginia lost to that team. It just didn't count for ACC play, but they did lose that game. That is their only loss so far this season, is to NC State. They also escaped Florida State. Florida State ain't very good. They barely beat Washington State. You think Washington State's a very good team? They barely squeaked by North Carolina. They should have lost last week. But they found a way to win by literal inches. The one thing that Virginia does have going for them is that they did beat Louisville. I don't know how, but they did. I can't take that away from them. That is a quality win. But aside from that, this Virginia team, I don't trust them. They're going on the road out west. Is Cal a good team? Not really. And one issue with Cal is that they are bottom 5 in the ACC, I believe, in run defense, and that is Virginia's strength. So if Virginia can establish that running game, hold the ball, time of possession could be really much of a factor in this one, then obviously they can win. But I'm going to pick an upset here. I think Cal is going to get it done at home by a final score, 27-24. The clock will strike midnight on Virginia. Let's move on to another ranked matchup. You got Virginia Tech hosting number 16 Louisville. Speaking of Louisville, that's the team that actually lost to Virginia, as I mentioned a minute ago. Don't look now, but Virginia Tech, very quietly, has been better over the last few weeks. They have. It's very sneaky, very quiet. Obviously, after the first 3 games, they deservedly fired Brent Pry. Who knows who the coach is going to be? There's a lot of rumblings that it's going to be James Franklin. By the time you're watching and listening to this, that could be a done deal. I don't know. At the time of this recording, still sort of up in the air right now with James Franklin and Virginia Tech. But regardless, we're still talking about 2025 here. James Franklin cannot coach a game for Virginia Tech this season. Since the firing of Brent Pry, Virginia Tech 3-2. That's right. And their losses, a 7-point loss to Wake Forest, who just beat SMU, And they got a 15-point loss to Georgia Tech. And I understand that game wasn't really that close against Georgia Tech, but still, they only lost that game by 2 possessions against a team that is right now the class of the ACC. They also beat a couple of conference teams. They went on the road and they beat NC State. They also beat Cal last Friday night in double overtime. Am I picking Louisville to win this game? Yes, I do believe that Louisville is going to beat Virginia Tech. But the reason why I'm kind of hyping up Virginia Tech a little bit is for you Louisville fans to understand that this game, you can't treat it lightly. You can't treat it as an automatic circled win for Louisville. And forget you, the listener, it really should be the message to the players and the coaches of Louisville. And I'm not expecting that they're going to lay some sort of egg, but I'm just pointing out that Virginia Tech has been better and that you got to take them seriously. Because if you don't, this Virginia Tech team, they could win. Why not? This is ACC football after all. We've seen some crazy outcomes this year, prior years as well. There's always upsets. Louisville has to take this game seriously. And one player that they got to rely on a lot, I know I'm going to sound like Captain Obvious here, but Isaac Brown, the running back, has been sensational the last couple of weeks. He finally seems like he is hitting his stride this season. Pound the rock, as John Gruden used to say with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2002. Lean into that running game against Virginia Tech. They are bottom 5 in the conference in rush defense. So there's your path. Run the football with Isaac Brown, control the clock, play some good defense against Virginia Tech, against Kyron Johnson. Should win this game relatively easily. I got Louisville 35-21. Still got plenty more to discuss for week 10 of ACC football, including Clemson against Duke. Does anyone have an idea of what's going to happen in that game? Well, we'll talk about it next here on Locked On ACC. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. And in the ACC, I'm going to give it to the same player who I just discussed in the last ad read, and that is for Wake Forest, Connor Calvert, the kicker, a 50-yard buzzer-beating field goal. Wake Forest beats SMU. Here's how big that field goal was. Really simple. If Connor Calvert doesn't make the kick, SMU wins that game 12-10. But he makes the kick, and so therefore Wake Forest wins. There was no overtime cushion for Wake. They needed that field goal to go in. It did. So congratulations to Connor Calvert. You are the recipient of this week's winner for DoorDash. And just like Connor Calvert delivered for Wake Forest, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. 4 more matchups to discuss in the ACC. And at the end of the podcast, we are crowning this week's winner of the Somebody Has to Win Bowl. One matchup that will not be the winner of that award for this week is Clemson hosting Duke this Saturday at noon Eastern. Believe it or not, Clemson, last time I checked over on FanDuel, they are 2.5 point favorites. We are entering the month of November. And as I said on ACC Squad, I still don't know what Clemson actually is. I know what they were in the preseason, and all the hype they had. And obviously, they are not that team that we hyped them up to be. Clearly, they are not. They've lost too many games. Yeah, they got talent, but you've just lost too many games. But in that stretch of losing that they've had this season, close loss to Georgia Tech, lost that game at the buzzer on a walk-off field goal, lost to Syracuse, really got beaten down by Syracuse. However, they had Steve Angeli for the majority of that game. Syracuse would be a lot better than what they are now if they had had Steve Angeli for the season. They lost to LSU to begin the year in a close game. I know LSU just fired their coach, but still they got talent. And then last week, when it finally seemed like Clemson may be turning a corner, albeit against bad teams, but they were blowing out the bad teams like they were supposed to, their starting quarterback does not play against SMU, and they lose. So what is Clemson? I don't know, but I know what Duke is. Duke is a team that can look great against bad teams. If you're a bad team that has a bad defense and you're going up against the Duke Blue Devils, you're in for a rough afternoon or rough evening. It's probably not going to go well for your team. They can overwhelm teams. But when Duke has played anyone this season that has something to play for this season, they have folded like a lawn chair. Lost to Illinois. I understand that game is closer than the score, but they got, by score, blown out against Illinois. They lost to Tulane. They lost to Georgia Tech. So is Duke going to beat anyone worth a you-know-what this season? I don't know. How good is Clemson? We don't know that either. So when I feel I don't have a good read on a game, and this one I genuinely don't have a good read on it, I'm going to side with the home team. So I am picking Clemson to win this game 30-28 at home. It'll be a nice victory for the Clemson Tigers, and Duke once again searching for that win that actually really does mean something. Beat a team. And then we could talk about Duke for the rest of the year. That's what I noticed in my research for them this season. Very, very odd. Got some talent, though, on that team. Let's move on to a game that it came close to winning this week's Somebody Has to Win Bowl, but there's still a lot of stakes to it. You got Stanford hosting Pitt this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Pitt is a team that obviously has a lot to play for. They only have one loss in the ACC, so they are still in the hunt to potentially be a representative in Charlotte by the end of the year. They are doing the West Coast thing, so don't fall for that trap if you are Pitt. But Mason Heinschel, the quarterback, he is the truth. After an off performance against Syracuse a couple of weeks ago, he certainly bounced back in a big way last week. I'm going Pitt in that one, 35-17. Feel free to comment your thoughts in the comment section below if you think there's any shot and upset by Stanford. Florida State versus Wake Forest this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, it nearly won this week. Somebody has to win bowl. But Wake Forest does have 5 wins. So one more win, they qualify for a bowl. And Florida State, who knows how long Mike Norvell, their head coach, actually survives. At what point are they going to rip the Band-Aid off? Or are they going to rip it off? Maybe they give him another year. I know they give him the vote of confidence, but I mean, so what? That only lasts for so long. Who knows what Florida State is actually going to do? And I find this fascinating. Last I checked FanDuel on Thursday afternoon, Florida State was a 9.5-point favorite at home against Wake Forest. 9.5 points. What am I missing? Seminole fans, talk to me. What's going on? Am I missing something? 9.5? They just lost to Stanford. You think, as Brian Smith has said before, you think they're excited to play Wake Forest? I'm sorry, but not only am I going to say that Florida State doesn't cover in this game, I don't think they're winning. Why would I pick Florida State to win a game now? they're going to just make me look like a fool. I'm fine at this point with Florida State making me look like a fool because they win, but I am done giving the benefit of the doubt to Florida State. They really upset me. They really do. 23-16, Wake Forest wins. And finally, the winner of this week's Somebody Has to Win Bowl award goes to the matchup that is actually happening tonight. Inside the JMA Wireless Dome, it'll be a haunted house. You got the Syracuse Orange hosting the North Carolina Tar Heels at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. What did I say on Locked On Syracuse, Locked On Tar Heels? It was a crossover episode. 16-13 Syracuse. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. In power conference games this season, North Carolina has yet to score 20 points. Since Steve Angeli went down with a torn Achilles and Ricky Collins was anointed the new starting quarterback of Syracuse, they have also not scored 20 points. Logic would say both teams are going to struggle to move the ball. Syracuse is at home. I hope they win. I'm going to pick them to win 16-13. They get a nice Halloween victory. As far as what's coming up on Locked On ACC in the future, the next episode will be your regularly scheduled hosts. You got Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. And of course, next Saturday, I will be back with you all, ladies and gentlemen, to preview ACC Week 11 of college football. So, folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On ACC, and I will see you all again next Friday.